This podcast is intended for educational purposes only. Please visit Natural Care Midwifery and our podcast page for our full disclosure. Well, welcome back to More About Birth. We're here with another episode, and it's season 1, and this is podcast 20. Can you believe that?
Ooh. No, I can't believe it.
And so today we are going to talk about what, Shannon?
Talking about children at birth. So my big question when people say they want to have their children at their labor and birth is why? What's your reasoning? So what was your reasoning for having your kids at your birth?
Well, we really saw the birth as a natural family event, which is why we were having a home birth in the first place, because it was just another part of our life as a couple and as a family. So that they were there from the very first moments of this baby's life. And I think it creates a little bit less sibling rivalry. I mean,
less jealousy about the new baby.
I think it makes that transition better for them. And I think if they feel like they're a helpful part of the birth, even more so, because then it's like they're already stepping into that older sibling responsibility role. And it's just creates this more seamless transition. So that's where we were coming from.
Yeah, I think there's a lot better bonding that happens also. And then when your children are at your birth, if it's their choice, they're happy with it, you're happy with it. And age appropriate, of course. I think that it just normalizes the whole process and just reiterates that it's just a normal, natural event in the course of your day, that having a new baby come into your home is an awesome thing. It's not a like, oh no. I mean, you know, you've seen those storybooks about the baby that comes home from the hospital and the little kid looks at it and it's like, what's this alien thing doing in my house?
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes there's trouble. But I feel like there are things that you really need to ask yourself before you're going to choose to have your children at your birth. So let's go through a few of those things. I know the first thing I think about is, you know, age appropriateness. So maybe for your toddler, it's not going to be a big deal because they don't really understand what's going on anyway. So if they're there, they're just there. However, maybe your 10-year-old son, you're considering having him there, and you might think about the fact that he's old enough that it could be awkward for him to be a part of something like that. Whereas if he were 5, it might be an exciting, you know, wonderful thing.
Yeah. Right.
Well, can't you regulate what part of the birth they're at? I think it's the whole idea. For me, it would be the whole idea of being stuck outside waiting, right? It'd be nice to be able to see mom before or right after. I think you could choose moments.
Well, that's the other thing, is what part of the birth do you want them to be a part of? And we've seen it all over the board, right?
Yeah.
I mean, kids come in right after baby's born. Grandma brings them into the room. They're waiting out in the hallway at the hospital and then come in. They come in just for the pushing part. They come in just for labor. And then when it's go time, you know, another adult takes them out.
Right.
Your kids were there for pretty much the whole thing, right? Or were they asleep?
Yeah. With
the last
second birth, my daughter was about 3.5, and she was in and out for most of it. But then with my third birth, they were slept through most of it, and then they just came in right after she was born.
I see that happen a lot. So we'll go to a birth, and if mom has older children, it probably 90% of the time she'll go into labor later in the afternoon or early evening, and after everybody's tucked into bed, that's when things really start to roll, and so everybody's asleep.
Yeah,
and they're able to just wake the children up to come in and see. Some of the things that, like the mentor that I studied most under as a midwife, used to tell people all the time, you know, will your children be comfortable with the noises that you're going to make? Will they be comfortable with the lack of modesty? Will they be afraid? And I know I just attended a birth a few months ago where one of the toddlers, she's probably between 1.5 and 2 years old. She was at the birth, but there was really no prep that went into it.
Oh, yeah.
And when mom gave that last push to get baby out and vocalized what her body was feeling, that poor child freaked out. He just about climbed the wall,
Yeah.
scared him
That's
to
sad.
death.
Well, plus it's mom, so if you're a boy, it's
Well, right.
defensive mechanism comes in. So who am I going to take out in this moment,
And you've never seen or heard your mom act like that before, so it's going to be scary. It took a long time to calm him down.
Wow.
So, anything else you can think of as far as questions you might want to ask yourself before you decide to have your children at your birth?
Yeah, well, I just think it's really important to know your kid. They're all different, no matter what their age or gender. Some of them are going to love it and some of them aren't. So just knowing that, knowing your kids, knowing that ahead of time, talking with them about that. And then...
So would you recommend they sit down as a family and discuss it with the kids?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the second half about all the prep that can go into this. But I think too, being open to what they want, because your kids are people and they're individuals.
Well, and sometimes some of the siblings will want to be there and the others don't want to be.
Right. So I think on whether it's you're not comfortable as much having there, maybe try to warm up to that and be open to that. If it's something that they really want, find ways to incorporate them. If they're really not comfortable with it and you're really wanting them to be there, if you start doing some of that prep work and it's not going well, be open to letting them not be there, kind of let go of that. So trying to be flexible on both sides of the spectrum.
Let them lead. Let them lead. Something I think about a lot of times is their comfort level, the mom's comfort level. Is she going to be able to totally relax and let go with the kids there? Because, as moms, our mom brain, we can't shut them out. And we hear things that not even dad hears, Right. We hear them cry before it comes out their mouth if they get hurt. It's kind of like you hear it in your head. So are you going to be able to let go and relax and let that baby out in labor the way you need to? Or are you going to be too in tune to your child being in the room?
And first-time moms aren't going to necessarily know the answer to that question, right? Because they've not had a baby yet or had the kids there. So you might have to adjust on the fly too, right?
Yeah, you mean if it's your second?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're second, you would know, right?
Yeah,
if the kids
you've
are
had
comfortable.
one and you've had,
And if you're going to be comfortable having the baby while the kids are there, but at the first birth,
your own modesty level, because even if it's not children, just anybody in the room, I've had labors where mom's laboring just fine with the people she chose to have at the birth, and all of a sudden labor stalls because she's at a point where she's not comfortable anymore. She is feeling modest. She doesn't feel comfortable making the noises she needs to do or being in the position she needs to be in.
Right.
All of a sudden labor stalls, and if we ask the guests to leave, things resume as they should. So it could be that way with your children also. Yeah, my phone's buzzing.
Who's calling?
I turned it off. Somebody's always calling.
They wanted to be on the podcast today.
Should I answer it?
Yeah. Tell them you're live.
Yeah, you're live. We have a waiver for you to sign.
Yeah. So I think we should always give our children the option to dog out if they want to. They might think they want to be there and then totally change their mind.
Right.
So anything else you can think of?
Well, I mean, to that end of having them the option to come or go is making sure that there's somebody there dedicated just to be with them. Even if they think for sure 100% they want to be there. If they're a young kid that needs to be watched and can't just walk out of the room and take care of themselves, have somebody there, even if they're in the other room or next door or whatever, that's able to step in at any point and take the kids so that they always have that out. And so that you as the laboring mom always have that out. We can just say, we need a minute. So take so-and-so.
I'm having a vision of one of the births I went to, and she'll know who she is. So you're probably grinning right now, but she was in the birth pool and she wanted her child there. But every time the child came close and touched the birth pool, it made just the tiniest little wave in the water, and it drove her nuts. She's like,
wow,
don't touch the pool.
Ultra sensitive at that moment.
It's amazing how sensitive people can be.
Baby walks away, toddler walks away, comes back, peeks over the pool, barely touch it. Don't touch the pool. Take them out of here. So she thought she wanted him there, but
Okay, so I have a question. Is the dad responsible for the kids while they're in there having the baby when we talk about having the kids maybe in or out?
Depends on the situation.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I've been at births where maybe they're new in town they don't have any family. They don't have any neighbors that they know yet or someone they trust to watch the toddler or the 2-year-old while mom's birthing. So it's dad. He's going to have to wrangle both. And you pray that mom's in labor during the night when the toddler's sleeping.
Well, I think from a guy's perspective, I would, you go to your classes and you do all the stuff that you're supposed to do, and you want to be there to be the support person.
Right.
I don't know that we talked, or in the classes that I was at of yours and listened to, I didn't hear anything about what the dad's role is going to be when there's kids involved.
Children.
Yeah. So obviously you have to have your first or second child before it becomes an issue. But there's other people too that end up at births. There are other family members, a sister that might bring like a 13-year-old daughter.
Even the doula, a doula is there to do whatever needs done. As a midwife or midwife assistant, we've taken on that role also, where we've helped out with a child so that dad could attend to mom. Or maybe I've got a mom that dad doesn't like to be in there when the baby's born because he can't handle the goo. And so he takes care of all the other children. And then when we have the baby cleaned up and wrapped up, he comes in and gets all excited and holds the baby. And
so you just kind of, you figure it out as you go because you have the team there.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you figure it out as you go. I mean, in any particular instance, mom might actually feel more comfortable having dad watch the kids if there isn't anyone else that she trusts to do that. She might be able to check out and labor better knowing that the other kids are well taken care of.
Got them.
So there is that, but
and then we could step in and help with the support role.
Right. But I think that it just highlights the need for preparation, which we're going to talk more about in the second half, but having a labor plan A, B, C, and D, where there's just these different options. And even then, it might not be any one of those. But if you have this is our go-to plan. If, the kid's doing well, we're going to go with this plan. If the kid's not, this is plan B.
Well, and then even in our birth plan outline that we have for class, there's a question that says, if for some reason we needed to transport, what's the plan for the children?
Yes.
Who will you call to take care of them?
And that's a part of the birth plan.
Right.
Okay.
And a birth plan is just kind of, looking ahead and looking at different scenarios and saying, if this happens, this is what we'll do, or this will be the plan if that happens. And
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that answers my question.
I'm glad.
Right.
So I think we'll go ahead and take a break. And then when we come back, let's talk about how to prepare your children for birth. And maybe we can share some stories of sweet things that we've seen with children at birth.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, that's the first half of today's episode of More About Birth. We are learning all about having our kids at our home birth. So that's exciting. We'll hear more when we get back. So come back with us. This podcast is intended for educational purposes only. Please visit Natural Care Midwifery and our podcast page for our full disclosure. This podcast is intended for educational purposes only. Please visit Natural Care Midwifery and our podcast page for our full disclosure. Well, welcome back from the break. We are back talking about taking our kids to our home birth, which means that they're there, but inviting them in. And I'm here with Shannon and Angie, our hosts. And you had a funny story about one of our kids going to a birth.
Yeah, one of our kids ended up as a child at a home birth.
Not yours.
Not on purpose. No, it was not my birth. So I had a friend who had a midwife. She was laboring. The midwife had 2 other births going on at the same time. She's like, you're the next best thing to the midwife. Can you just come? This was before I was a midwife.
What point were you at in your training?
I had just started training, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
So this was
you were
a long time ago.
So you were officially a doula.
Yeah, I was a doula.
Which, if you don't know what that means, we have a podcast where we actually talked with a doula.
Nice plug for the podcast. Yeah. So she calls and she says, she's not going to get here soon. Can you please come over? And I'm like, I have no babysitter. I had like a 18-month old.
So you're not going to name.
He must have been 2.
Oh, you said he. So I was just going
I've
to
got
put.
3 he's.
I was going to put you on the spot,
I've
saying
got
boy
3.
or girl, because I knew it was a
No. So I said, I'm going to have to bring him with me. He's asleep in the car seat. I'll pull him out of bed, and here we come.
he. Angie, watch this. How many years ago were you still a doula?
Don't go there. So I put him in the car seat, drive over there. We get out. He's still asleep. I put his car seat on the hearth. Fireplace wasn't on. So
Thanks for
I
that
just
detail.
stick him over there. Well, crazy minds. I stick him over there. Didn't think about what way he was facing. She's in the birth pool. The midwife does show up in time. But she's pushing. She's on her hands and knees in the birth pool with her rear end facing the direction that he's sleeping.
Yeah.
And she gives a roar and pushes out this baby. His eyes pop open and he says, "That baby come out her butt." I went, "Oh boy."
Scarred for life, right?
Boy. So,
So this is not the way you prepare your kids for a home
the
birth.
child of a midwife.
This was
or a doula.
So can we just say right now that's an example of how you don't?
How not to
That's how to
prepare
not
your child
prepare.
for birth.
So how
right.
do you prepare them?
And then he gets in trouble for saying "but."
right.
Yeah. Leave it to older siblings, right?
We'll edit that then on the podcast.
Yeah,
I'll
right.
bleep it.
Yeah.
Sure. So preparing them for birth. I brought some of the books that I have in my library. There's some really great ones. And I feel like one of the best ways to do this is to talk to your kids about what it's going to be like. Show them age appropriate
Can
picture
they
books.
see that? Is it too
Can you
far
see
away?
these?
Maybe we should read the titles.
And I'll do close-ups too.
This is one of my favorites. It has beautiful,
love that
beautiful
one.
pictures in it.
It's a beautiful story.
And again, age appropriate. If you want your child to know exactly what it's going to be like.
But they're
This
really
is
nice.
one
They're
for you.
tastefully done. They're not like
Right,
anatomy
right.
shots,
And I love this one. The family is helping Mama
It's
in one
so
of her labor
precious.
positions.
It really is.
So some of the books are
It's
just
like
great.
that one's like a feel good, like wonderful.
Yeah. And this one's kind of cartoony. We're having a home birth. I have a cute story about this book in particular. One of my clients sent me a little video one day and she says, "You've got to see this." So she was still pregnant and her daughter was looking at this book and fake reading it, right? Because she's pretty young still. And she gets to the one part and she goes, "And midwife helped the baby out."
Oh,
And she would
cute.
read it and say that every time.
That's so cute.
So here's another one of my all-time favorites. This one is a little bit more conservative and maybe would work well for even hospital birth or birth center birth. And this is one of Angie's favorites. I'll let you talk about it.
This one's beautiful and it would work. This birth takes place in a hospital, so it would work for home birth or
Mhm.
hospital. But this one's really neat because it's got some great science in it. There's 2 tracks on this book. So there's like the larger print that's the rhyming part, the poem part. So you can just read that. But then on the side, there's like more technical details about the growth of the baby and like some really fun facts. So this book is just wonderfully illustrated, really
Wow.
amazing, good, accurate drawn pictures of the baby
Mhm.
growing.
And I have
We love
moms
this one.
look at these books in my office so that they choose the ones that they feel like are appropriate for their child
Yeah.
or the degree that they want the nitty-gritties shared with them.
Right.
So preparation is awesome. And I'm kind of chuckling because I posted on Facebook one day, my granddaughter was here and she wanted to play midwife with me. And I said, "Okay, we'll play midwife." And so she got a doll and stuffed it up under her shirt. And, my daughter used to do this too. And then she would want me to listen with the Doppler. And then her baby would be born. She would want me to
That's so
check out her
cute.
baby. And, some people are offended by that, but I think it normalizes birth.
Yeah.
It is a normal, natural thing. And if we make this big deal out of it and act all embarrassed over it, then our kids are going to think it's something to be embarrassed of, and it's not normal and natural.
Plus, it helps them prepare for what they're going to see, like you said,
Right.
when you saw the pictures in the book. And then I think you're just more prepared, unlike our unnamed child.
Well, and you mentioned earlier, having the 12-year-old boy at the birth, it might be awkward, but having birth be kind of it's a natural, normal part of life, but it's also such a unique time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for some people, there can be older boys or teens at some part of the birth and have it not be awkward. I remember
we've seen that.
We've
They're
seen
not
that.
right down there in the.
No, they're not like catching the baby or something, but they all came in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
stood
of older
behind
teens stood behind mom right in the birth tub after the baby came out, and it was a beautiful moment.
Right.
There was nothing
awkward
about it.
Mom was covered and modest, so it wasn't awkward. And I always think about, because I have 3 boys. Boys go through puberty, and they go through this point where they're overly super sensitive about those kinds of things. And I always tried not to put my boys in a situation where they had to be uncomfortable like that, because their hormones are raging and they're just more sensitive to those things. So you got to think about that too.
But they're also probably going to end up hopefully out of birth themselves. So any experience that they could feel comfortable doing, it would be good to have them to be a part of it. Even if it's, like Angie said, a short part, they get to choose.
Yeah, well, my point in saying that was I think there is a different feel in the room, a certain thing that happens around birth where even if mom walked through the room half naked while she was in labor, I feel like it's a different feel than if mom walks through the house half naked on any other day. There's a certain special thing that happens around birth to where it is less awkward. And I think a mature older teen can understand that and feel that. And I think that's a valuable experience for them to have.
And plus, let's not forget, some people, you guys are at births all the time and see it. From my perspective, when I got to be there the first time and see the baby and actually catch a baby, man, it's like, there should be like Chariots of Fire music or something in the background, because it's those special moments. You guys describe it all the time, but I think
I remember my first catch. It was like that.
So you need to experience a birth. So some of you listening to the podcast, if someone invites you and says they want to be at your birth, maybe that's the chance for you to be able to see it for the first time. It's pretty incredible.
It's amazing. I mean, I have to laugh though. Okay, so I won't mention which child this is either, but one of my boys here, growing up with a midwife, we tried to normalize this thing, right? We talk about birth stuff at the dinner table. To this day, and he's in his 30s, you cannot mention the word placenta. And it just wigs him out.
So you just narrowed it down to 2, by the way.
Try as you might. Sometimes you just can't make them okay with some stuff. And that's all right.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people that are okay with birth stuff still aren't okay with placentas. Placenta's like its own beast.
Yeah.
Its own grossness.
Yeah. So maybe we should do the placenta podcast, because we've already done the
I do want to do a placenta podcast.
Oh, we should.
There's so many cool things about a placenta.
Yes.
Okay,
But
make a
off
note
track.
of that.
So books, videos. YouTube has some amazing, beautiful, very tasteful videos of birth that can be age appropriate. Your children can help you practice relaxation during pregnancy. They can help you gather up baby things and get ready with all the birth supplies you need for your home birth. Let them ask questions. I mean, did your kids ask you a lot of questions when you were pregnant?
Well, we majored on prep. So we did a ton of reading. I mean, almost on a daily basis. Our picture books, we just started incorporating it into our daily life. We watched a ton of YouTube videos. We
Kids
found ones on
love
all
birth
spectrums. Like we
videos.
found some really tame ones. I even, pre-watched and had them watch a couple where mom was really vocal because I wanted them to be prepared for that. And
know that it's okay.
Yeah. And they were, and they were fine with it. It's just, you're teaching your kids, and this is another part of their education.
One really important thing that people forget a lot, and I try and remind them, is make sure your children know that God made extra blood in your body when you're pregnant. So when you see this blood come out afterwards, it's okay. It's not an owie. It's a normal, it's a normal
And that
thing,
may be
and
true
mama
with
is
your
okay.
water breaking as well if they're there. Because I've been
That
there
could
for
be
that.
kind
And
of
that's,
freaky for you.
and if you don't know that's normal, you could
just
freak
tell
out.
mama wet herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so play birth. I'll never forget when my daughter, and we only have one daughter, so yes, Nicole, we know it's 2. She was probably 4 and the little neighbor girl was 3. We were really good friends, and I'll never forget, the neighbor girl's parents called one day. They were just really serious. In fact, it was the husband. He says, "We need to talk."
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, "Oh dear, what?" Our girls were playing doctor. And I'm like, "Oh dear." He goes, "They were putting dolls under their shirts and pretending to deliver babies." And I busted up
up.
laughing. I'm like, this is your first child. It's okay.
It's
This
gonna
is
be all
normal.
That's funny.
This is normal.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So if it had been they had a bike, it would be completely normal, but instead they're practicing birthing babies.
Right. What
That's
about
cute.
tears in labor? So a lot of times when babies are born, mamas burst out crying or daddy bursts out crying. Do you think there's some way to help our children understand that those are happy tears and talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to him about it ahead of time.
Remember the birth we were at not long ago? Little boy was there, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah,
I
that
loved
was
that birth.
so precious. You know, my mom was towards the end of labor, and the 6-year-old boy, older brother, wakes up and he comes down, and he, you know, mom was in the birth tub, and he was so sweet to her.
Mhm.
Just came over and touched her and stroked her head and said, "Mommy, you're doing such a great
So
job,"
sweet.
and just encouraged her through it. It was so precious. And then he actually got to see. I caught the baby.
Uh-huh.
And this baby, he got such a clear picture of this baby coming out
Oh, it's
underneath the
gonna make me
water.
cry.
And I could see out of the corner of my eye the look on his face, and it was priceless. That's a moment he is never going to forget. And you could just see he wasn't in shock. He was just
It
in
was
this
awe.
this
It was
wonder.
awe.
And it was priceless.
And then he covered his face with his hands and just sobbed.
yeah, he
Because
was
he
so
was
excited.
so
Wow.
happy.
It was so precious.
That's
It
when you
was.
wish you had a camera running because that.
We did get a picture.
Did
but-
you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did get a picture. It's priceless.
Oh, what an amazing story!
And we'll end with this, but one of the very first births I was ever at with Ginger, they had a 2-year-old little girl, and grandma was there to kind of take care of her. It was in the middle of the day, so mom and dad were laboring in the bedroom, and the baby was born. And apparently while we had been laboring in the bedroom, grandma and the 2-year-old were baking a birthday cake for the baby.
Mm.
So they had this birthday cake that was clearly frosted by a 2-year-old
So
with a little
cute.
candle stuck in it, and all the lights were out in the room. So when the baby was born, they told grandma, go ahead and bring the toddler in. And grandma helped the toddler walk in with this tiny little messy frosted cake with one candle on it.
Wow.
And she was singing happy birthday in her cute little 2-year-old voice.
So good.
And I lost it and
Oh,
started
yeah.
crying. And I'm like, yep, this is definitely what I want to do for
Well,
my
you know,
family.
with most things in life, right, that have those precious moments, they're not easy all the time. Birth isn't easy, but those are the things that you celebrate because
those are the great rewards.
those are the great rewards that we get for doing some of the hard things and
Oh,
not
yeah.
just holding the baby, but think about it. You think the baby is the greatest prize, which it is a great prize, but look at this
But
boy's
that
response.
experience,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So let your kids be a part of birth if they want to, and give them
Yeah.
permission to dog out at any point.
But don't leave
They're
them
not
with their
comfortable
car
with it.
seat facing the wrong direction.
Don't make the car seat face
That
the
was
mom's
like
bum.
True captive audience. Poor kid.
Poor kid
Like,
strapped
He could
in.
barely
Strapped in.
talk, but he got that out.
I love it.
Oh, and hey, you don't want to miss our next podcast coming up in one or 2 weeks.
2, yeah.
2 weeks. We're gonna be talking about sex, guys. Don't want to miss this one.
Also, we're going to have the Mindalls back and
Yes,
Mundalls,
for the
right?
second half.
Second half.
Yeah.
That's been a very hot
It's
hot podcast, and we
so
didn't even
wonderful.
cover all the stuff that we wanted to cover. To have a doctor in the house, that was great.
Yeah.
They have more great stories to share with us.
Yeah, so don't miss part 2 of that.
It's gonna be good. See you guys later.
Thanks.
Well, that's the end of today's More About Birth. We've talked about having children at the birth. So you could do that at the hospital. You could do that at home birth. It just depends on your caregiver. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you'll join us next week for a special podcast, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is intended for educational purposes only. Please visit Natural Care Midwifery and our podcast page for our full disclosure.